Okay, let's talk about selecting your vendor. You wrote the best RFP ever and you sent it out. Now you have a stack of RFP responses on your desk. How do you choose the best one? Well, most likely you won't be doing that alone. So let's meet the RFP selection committee. Most large-scale radiology projects are going to have stakeholders, and stakeholders want to have input into the RFP selection process. Executives such as the radiology director, the hospital chief financial officer, the director of IT, whoever the project sponsor is, and whoever's writing the big check will probably want to be involved. If the project involves a product radiologists will use, they will definitely want to say in the selection process. If it involves cardiologists, they will want to say. If it involves technologists, they're going to want to vote. There will be clinical people on the selection committee. And finally, you'll be on the selection committee. Most commonly, your role in the selection process will be to evaluate all of the RFP responses for feasibility. In simple terms, will the proposed product work with our current systems? This will have you reading DICOM conformance statements, IHE statements, and interface specification documents. So, to evaluate and score the RFPs, you're going to need a score sheet. So you'll have to develop that based on your projects. So each one will be different. I didn't grab a sample one, I just threw up a picture of my soccer score sheet, but you're going to have a score sheet that relates to your project where you can score all of the features, whatever the things you want from that product, and then rank all the RFPs according to their score. Possible scoring outcomes. Once the RFP scoring team starts grading the responses, there are several possible outcomes based on how the project is being managed. Some possible solutions are the scoring team selects the top 2 proposals, or maybe it's the top 3 if you have a lot of responses. Maybe they rank all the proposals from best to worst. However, there's 2 things that shouldn't happen. 1, the RFP scoring team should not be the ones to pick the final vendor that you will use for the project. And 2, the outcome of the scoring process shouldn't be a surprise. And this is probably a good point to talk about project influence. Okay, I want to go all the way back to week 1 and reiterate, as a recent graduate, it's extremely unlikely that you'll be running million-dollar projects. But you may be working on them. And watching others manage influence is a lot of fun. Large-scale, multidisciplinary radiology projects will have influence exerted on them. Something like building a new outpatient imaging center or replacing the existing mammography information system. These are the type of projects I'm thinking of. And in projects like this, there are 4 types of influence. There is vendor influence, which means getting the hospital to buy their product. Executive influence, which usually is getting the cheapest product. Physician influence, which is usually getting the product that makes the physician's job the easiest. And then last but not least, there's getting what you want, which is getting a product that works with our current systems and is easy to support. Let's talk about those types of influence. Did you watch the How Vendors Evaluate Your RFP video on D2L this week? Do you remember the #1 red flag in their evaluation? It was not having a relationship with the customer. In fact, in the video, the preventer said, or you don't have an in with an inside source. That tells you everything you need to know about vendor influence. If they are doing their job, they won't even respond to your RFP unless they have a strong advocate for them that works inside your organization. Each vendor advocate, whether it's you, an executive, or a physician, is going to try to influence the process in favor of the vendor that they support. And then you have executive influence. Even if an executive isn't aligned with a particular vendor, they will have their own agenda. Maybe it's saving money. Given their power and authority as an executive in your organization, particularly if they control the money in the project, whichever way they fly, a lot of people are going to follow. Then you have physician influence. In the social hierarchy of healthcare, physicians are the lords of the land. They generate a lot of income, and they tend to get what they want. However, they can almost never agree on what they want. Some physicians will be vendor advocates, with each physician supporting a different vendor. Sometimes they will align based on their specialty. All the radiologists will want product A, and all the ER physicians will want product B. the physicians involved in the project will almost certainly be a big pool of competing influences. And then there's getting what you want. You're going to have to live with, work with, and support the software in this project for years. Your professional reputation may very well be tied to the software in this project. You or the senior person in your team that represents your group on the project cannot afford to let people under some influence drive the project into the arms of a particular vendor. Unless, of course, it's the vendor you want them to choose in the first place. The first step in getting what you want is to determine what everyone else wants. What vendor influences are being exerted on the project and who supports each vendor? What is the executive agenda? Is there a physician or group of physicians whose goals align with your goals? Once you understand the field, then the next step in getting what you want is called project politics. Once the RFP responses have been graded, including the predetermined winner, which you made sure came through as one of the finalists, it's time for the final vendor selection process. How that process is conducted will determine your political strategy. If you get to pick the vendor, well, that's easy. You pick the one you want. Let's say the project is to upgrade the storage on your archive server. The only person who really controls that project is you, so you're going to pick the one you want. That's an easy one. If there's a project champion, maybe an executive picking the final vendor, then you have to strongly encourage the executive to pick the one you want. You'll have to make your case for the vendor you want, much like a prosecuting attorney makes a case in court. You'll want to have and present overwhelming evidence that the vendor you want has the best product. Also try to make sure it has the lowest cost too. If the project stakeholders pick the vendor, and I'm thinking of a group of clinical people in this case, then you have to build a coalition. In simple terms, you need to get enough votes for the outcome that you want. If there are 7 physicians selecting the vendor, you want to make sure 5 are going to vote for the vendor that you want to have. If you don't have the 5 votes you need from the start, you may have to do some work to flip a few physicians to your point of view. The same process applies if a selection committee is involved. You need to build a coalition of votes that support the outcome you desire. So you're going to have to do some politicking to make sure that it comes out the way you want it to be. And finally, I've never been witness to or part of a vendor selection process that I thought was fair and unbiased. If you aren't doing the influencing, somebody else is. And that all ties back to procurement. Now that the vendor's been selected, and hopefully it's the one you want, we can get the project moving. You need to figure out everything you need for the project. The vendor will help you with this. Then you need to make it, buy it, or build it. For everything you need to buy, you will work with your purchasing supply departments to acquire it. It sounds simple, but it's not. In fact, next week's class is all about that process of purchasing, buying, contracts to get all the things you need for your project. Thank you for watching.